Hey folks, welcome to Founder Journeys, the podcast where we shine a light on the earliest days of starting up. We go beyond pitch decks and into the real stories behind startups. I'm your host Sanjeev, and I sit down with founders who are still in the thick of it. Pre-breakthrough, pre-traction, sometimes even pre-product. This isn't about overnight success. It's about the quiet beginnings and resilient pull-throughs. The notebooks, the late night Google Docs, the bold decisions made, and much more. We talk about what sparked the idea, what is being built, and what they're figuring out as they go. If you're starting something or thinking about it, Founder Journeys could be a space for you. If you're looking for the next gig or looking for the next team to support, this could be a space for you. If you're just browsing, stick around and maybe you'll find the product or service you always wanted. There's a whole world of possibilities here. We call it the serendipity generator. Let's get started. Today's guest is Alex Nativelle, who's building Brio. He's from France, is currently in the US, and he's creating this startup aimed at helping people give better interviews. Alex, welcome to Founder Journeys. Really happy to have you here. And we'd like to start with asking you about what has been your journey so far, where before you
Yeah,
started with what you're doing now, and then we go from there.
yeah. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. So my name is Alex. I am French. Obviously, you can probably tell right away. I was born in the west of France, and then I did a business school called HEC. And the story of like how I got into Brio, which is the company I co-founded, is actually quite funny and relates to what we're doing. So, um, I had a mentor back in my school. You know, they're doing this mentorship program where I meet this guy who works at Google in Berkeley. Like he's way old, like a bit more old than me. Like he's 40, 45. Like this guy is amazing. We vibe it. The program lasts 6 months, but we end up like meeting in person and figuring out we have kind of the same interest. I've always been into public speaking a lot and like helping others, coaching. And so this one time I was just graduating from HEC and Yale, and I'm in the car in holidays, and I get this phone call from this guy who's on the other side of the planet. It's like, "Hey Alex, how you doing?" I'm like, "Good. Like, what's happening, right?" And he said, "Have a very interesting project. I think you'll love it." And this is like July 2023. So it's, and he says like, there's this big wave of AI I'm witnessing at Google, and I have this project that I think is perfect for you, and we should definitely do something together. I'm like, yeah, like I'm on holidays, but let me check. I'm gonna join something, and I was basically joining the first conversation of the first product with freelancers on a boat. Like, okay, this looks awesome. This was just the beginning of AI, of everything ChatGPT released, but people were not really into the wave yet.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of like how it all started, which is very funny looking back at it now, 2 years from it.
So, so if I may ask, what was the product about at that
Yeah.
time?
So the idea was to help people prepare for job interviews thanks to AI.
Okay.
And so basically our vision at Brio, it has not evolved that much from there. We're still working on that. And our vision is to able everyone to start at the same start line, right?
Okay.
We want everyone to have the power to sell themselves and get the job that they deserve, whether they have the network for it, whether they have the means to get coaching, to even think about coaching, right? Because when you think about coaching, most people aren't even thinking about this. They don't know this is available, right, to them. They haven't even, they've never been coached. They've never thought about it. They don't think they need it. But obviously, this is something that will help them tremendously. And so that's our vision. It's not to cheat. I'm going to come back because I think there's a lot of like movements in the space that are really interesting. But our vision is really to teach you how to fish rather than cheat your way into a job, because we want to provide people with the tools to be able to perform at the job interview and at their job afterwards.
Got it. So is it about soft skills or is it more about presenting yourself in the right way during the interview? What is it about?
It's both. So right now, to be really clear what the product is. is really simple. You log in into the platform. You put the job description that you want to train for. So I don't know. Say I have a marketing position at Costco. Interview in 2 days. You put
Hmm.
that. You copy and paste it into the tool. You use your resume, and then you get a AI interview, which have become more common now. You have your cameras. You have a little avatar that is speaking to you, say, hey, how you doing, Alex? Like, I'm the recruiter. Please introduce yourself. The whole interview goes from there. The idea is that it's both personalized. So the questions are, what do you want to join Costco? Have you had any previous marketing experiences, right? Very, very targeted,
Hmm.
and interactive. So if you say, yeah, I'm really happy to meet you, they're gonna say, cool, but can you introduce yourself? That was the question I asked, like those kind of things. And the
Hmm.
whole interview flows. Afterwards, you get a feedback on how you did, what you
Hmm.
said, and what was impactful, what was not, what you should probably think about changing, and also the way you spoke. So like, did you look at the camera? Were you smiling? Do you have a nice background? All of those things.
Okay. All right. I know we are about to dive into the product side of things, but I want to take a
Yeah,
little step back
yeah, yeah,
and come back to my first question, wherein I want people to understand where you come from. I know you
mm-hmm.
mentioned you're from France, but then how was your journey before you got into entrepreneurship? Meaning, you know, landing in the US, just going through the whole path. You mentioned Yale along the way. So how has that
Yeah.
been, and what has inspired you to really say, okay, this is a problem that really aligns with my thinking? That's where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, of course. So I think there are a few key experiences there that led me to join this project.
Hmm.
The first one is, so I did nearly all of my studies except 1 year in France. I did for 2 years something that is an association based in my school, which was basically, there's like Paris, right? I was studying in Paris, and there's a lot of suburban areas, some
Hmm.
of which are um, how do I put that? Very challenged to get jobs and to get the education that they deserve. And so part of what we're doing is go there once a week for like 3 to 4 hours and help people study, right? Because they don't have that support at home, study and then get into the schools they wanted, basically. So that was really transformative for me to understand, where different people are coming from, the challenges they might encounter. In fact, that's not a revelation for a lot of people, but we don't have all the same support system or like the tools we need to succeed in life as we should have. So that was the first thing. Another thing is I've always loved public speaking and like getting people to be able to communicate what they want to exhibit, right? To be able to, I think people have fantastic ideas. Uh, and most of them, it's less true in the US, but especially in France, don't manage to communicate it well. And because of
Sure.
that, all those good ideas are wasted, or even themselves. Like they are good people, wanting to work, motivated, but because they don't sell themselves well, they just don't get the job. So those are two main things. And I think the third thing is I've always coached people. Like I realized going forwards, like people have asked me to coach them public speaking if they have a presentation coming up.
Okay.
You do those little role plays with others. So like, oh, I have a job interview coming up. Like maybe you can prepare me a bit. Like
Hmm.
let's vibe it out. And so
Hmm.
those are all the things that led me to, okay, this is the perfect fit for me.
Okay.
And I've had experiences in a startup as well. I've worked 6 months in Barcelona at a startup. That was a fintech at the time, but I
Okay.
realized that that is the kind of environment I want to be in. I want to have high impact. I'm someone who don't think too much before doing things, and I think that applies well to startup. So I'm like, let's go, let's do this, let's try it out. If it doesn't work, okay. And I was constrained by some of the expenses I had at bigger companies where there's regulation stuff like that, and I wanted
Right.
to be able to have that mindset and energy coming in.
Awesome. You literally have underlined what Founder Journeys is all about, right? Giving people who are building and not really, great at marketing or who are savvy at marketing a platform to talk about what has been their journey, so that people can
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, okay, I can relate to what Alex is saying and I like what Alex is doing, so let me kind of support him. So, and we want the audience outside to do the same thing. So awesome. So it's a very interesting, you know, insight into your journey. And I really like that you've gone right from the ground up. You've experienced the whole training process at the grassroots level back in France, and then you're reapplying that whole thing now. It's pretty awesome. So now
Thanks.
we'll get back to the product.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's been a lot of things, but yeah, I'm
Okay.
very
So
happy.
so where are you now in your journey? Is it still is meaning in terms of the product? Where are we now?
Yeah, of course. So to give you an idea, is we have been building this for nearly 2 years now. So the product is live. It has been used by thousands of users, doing more than nearly 10,000 interviews on the product. We have our main business model is selling to higher ed institutions. So we sell it to colleges, universities that then provide it for free for their students. And the case we're solving is that they need, like, it's part of the education, right? A lot of people are focused on the academic side of things, but when you look back at your diploma, what's really important is like the job that it got you, right? And so that's what we're solving for, and employability issues. That is more and more the case nowadays. And so we have 10 clients now back in France. Um, and just to give a little bit of context, right now I'm in the US in San Francisco, part of the new Techstars San Francisco batch, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm here for 3 months. And now we're looking to understand the US market more and start selling into the US market.
Okay. So question about you having worked with the educational, you said
Mhm.
educational institutions is who's been your target so far, right?
Higher ed institutions, yes.
Okay. So is this product part of their curriculum or is it part of an extra optional thing that students can take on, like a course, so that they are prepared to go into the market when they are done with their educational course that they have signed up for with that institute?
It very much depends on the client. Some clients have integrated Brio into their curriculum, so it's like
Okay.
mandatory to do an interview on Brio to
Okay.
get your grade. And some of it is like additional support, right? They have career coaches that are helping the students. They have a
Hmm.
few resources like guides onto how you make your resume, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then Brio comes in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with regard to the US market, when you look at it now, you've been here for a few months, you've studied, I'm sure you looked at what's happening around here. Do you see a major difference between what's happening in France versus what's happening here? Meaning in terms of go to market, how can you kind of, introduce the product here?
I think just the requirements for the product readiness are higher. People are used to innovation here, so they require better products, I would say. But the market is pretty much the same. They have the same problems. They have the same, issues with their students not finding a job, etc. I think the problem is worldwide. Then I would say competition in the US is fierce, I would say. It's very tough to get a job right now. I was looking at people, analyzing on LinkedIn the trend of like hiring and stuff like that, saying AI is already replacing jobs. I'm not too sure about that, but definitely there's some worries and concerns about, how to get a job, how do I stand out in this market, how do I, get hired and stuff like that. So there's definitely, I'd say, a very similar traits.
Okay. So you also mentioned that the US is much more, meaning the population in the US is more marketing savvy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they a lot of students they already are they can market the hell out of everything, right? So do you see a challenge in terms of people adopting a product like yours?
I think it's quite the opposite, actually,
Okay.
because they are marketing savvy, they've been told their whole life marketing yourself, selling yourself is important. You have to invest time and energy doing that because
Hmm.
that's going to be really helpful and impactful in the end. So
Hmm.
people are, I would say, more educated on this subject. So I would
Okay.
say this is a bonus rather than a problem because people knows the importance of doing that. Rather than in France, most people are like, I should probably go to the interview, see how it goes, and then it's probably going to be fine. Spoiler, it isn't. But they realize it afterwards. Rather here, people are like, yeah, I need to people, and also people are like, yes, I need to invest money to get something, right? They're much more into like, if I get a very good job with Brio, of course I'll pay. This is not a problem for me. Like I'm into this mindset of like doing things rather than in France. People are like, oh, maybe I can get it for free. Let's try to get it for free, and those kind of things. So I would
Okay.
say it's actually a bonus thing. And of course, we're not doing only soft skills. We're also preparing you for the specifics of the job, technical expertise, and stuff like that.
Okay. And how are you testing this theory of yours for the US? Meaning, when I mean theory, I'm meaning there's the hypothesis that people in the US are more open to using tools to
Mhm.
upskill before when they go out for interviews and such. So how are you validating this idea?
Yeah, so there's a few things we're doing. We're talking with career coaches and directors around the country to
Hmm.
understand, their pain points because those are our customers right now in France. Understand their pain points, what they've focused on. There are also, some competitors on the interview prep side, not AI for now, but that have like legacy. So people have already been buying those kind of tools, so they know
Hmm.
what they're looking for, what has been useful, what has worked, what has not. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, of course, we're talking to users. So we're trying to help a few people in the US get a job, get the feel of like how they like Brio, what they would want to change, etc. And then what we're trying to do is get a very, very specific use niche case done right, and then expand from that. So right now we have hypotheses into what this niche is. One of the things we've been finding, and we've been talking with a lot of people on that, is low students. So basically they have on-campus interviews in the first year that are highly, highly stressful and highly impactful for the rest of their careers, because the first internship that they get is going to determine the second internship that they get, and then the jobs they're going to be access to. So people are really, really like, I need to prepare this right. So they're engaged, right? Those are one of
Okay.
the things that we're looking for. And this is very stressful interviews that they're willing to spend time and money on. And so what we're
Okay.
going to do is like build, we don't have this specific use case built into the product, but we're building it right now and then testing it out with students and with specific institutions. So those
Okay.
are kind of the three things we're doing, right, to test
Interesting.
this hypothesis.
Nice. Okay. Um, just kind of, I'm doing what I typically do, which is question the utility of the product. When it comes to uh, presenting this product to your end users, you said are students right now.
Mm-hmm.
Students are looking at getting again, I'm kind of just contextualizing from what you just said about they're looking at internships. So wouldn't you need to have information about what those internship opportunities are like? Meaning, what kind of companies go to these places for internships? When it comes to law, I understand it's very probably narrow because you're kind of referencing to the whole database data of law and various
Mm-hmm.
laws for the country, region,
Yeah.
etc., etc., or specialization therein. But if you have to look at moving beyond that domain and look at, let's say, as you said earlier, Costco, right?
Yeah.
For me to train for a job in a place like a Costco, what is the kind of data set you would need to provide so that I can kind of train off it? That becomes a question, right?
Mm. I think there's a few things here. First of all, I would challenge your hypothesis that we would
Hmm.
need extensive knowledge to train you well. I
Okay.
think just having a basic understanding of what Costco is, what they're doing, that is already kind of provided in the job description, I would be able to train you really, really well for that interview. So that's the first thing, because there's a people don't read job descriptions. I'm always telling the students like, read the job description. I'm a hiring manager. I put everything I wanted into this. So you have to basically tick the
True.
boxes, right?
Yeah.
And so people don't read it. And sometimes they do an interview on Brio and they're like, they asked me this question. I wasn't prepared for that. And then I read the job description. It was in it. So I'm very glad I did it because I had that question at the interview afterwards. And like, yeah.
Mm.
So the interview is going to be really personalized based on the job description. And this already has, I would say, 80-90% of the information that you need. And so
Okay.
I would challenge that hypothesis. Then there's things that we could do, like Costco. Information about Costco is publicly available. If we take
Hmm.
that example, so we can have that, and we do have that in our database to be able to be like, oh, if we ask you a question about what are Costco values and how do we identify with them, then we know what those values are. And if you say like something that are not true, we could probably flag that and tell you that you should research the company more, right?
What my question, let me just kind of rephrase my question a little bit. So,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
so it's about a specific role in Costco, let's say, right? Let's say
Yes.
warehouse management,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they may have their own methodologies or they may have certain things. So it's not just about standard information about the client, but it's also going to be information about the specific role that you're applying for,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Okay.
industry
I
specific.
understand.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
I understand. Then you have industry specific things that we can have, like those type of, like for instance, if you abstract it, like most role can be categorized, like is it a sales role, is it a manager role, technical role, and those are the questions. So if you have a sales role, you need to answer like very broadly, can I sell? Right? This is your job. So this
Hmm.
all of your answers need to be focused on that. If it's technical, can I do the job? And so that's first of all helpful into the abstraction of the tool and what you need to be displaying. And so warehouse manager, it's a manager role. So can I get people to do the job? And so that's what you need to display. And this is true for like all the jobs, right? And then going into it, I think first of all, as I said, like the job description often provides very detailed insights because they're going to talk about the company. They will only talk about this specific division, what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve. They're going to talk about the specific software that they use. So if we ask, like, I don't know, a sales position, they use HubSpot as a CRM. So
Mm.
the Brio's going to ask you about, have you used HubSpot or maybe other CRMs? How and when? Explain to me.
Yeah.
So this is already going to be really, really insightful. And then we're gonna this is something that we're working on to be able to replicate specific job processes. But what we found is that most jobs are very similar in terms of what we're asking, like the structure of the interview, and
Yeah.
that's what we're abstracting.
Got it.
So this is not, I would say, certain industries are very specific. We can talk about this, like consulting, maybe finance. There's a few things like that that are highly, highly specific, and that are doing specific exercises on. But most of the time, getting the job description and getting the right questions is already really, really impactful.
So what is very interesting here is that you can flip it around and so you have a potential user in a Costco when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
this. It becomes a client option because then what happens is they can easily create their job descriptions on your product and be assured that the interview will get handled automatically as well.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the other side of the story here, right? It
yeah.
becomes a very interesting thing for you. So, the possibilities are endless, obviously, with a product like this.
Yeah, and I would say like the jobs to be done here is mostly from the user standpoints, and that's the
Hmm.
problem we want to focus on.
Hmm.
Obviously, and there are other solutions that have focused on like the enterprise side of things.
Hmm.
That's not what we want to be doing right now,
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to
for
put that
sure.
question out just to see where you stand on the product journey. Uh,
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
I think we,
because
we, we want to do something really well, which is
mm,
understanding interviews, understanding our users, and
mm,
focus on that one thing and do it really, really well.
nice. Yeah, because a lot of companies are also looking at automating things like this, right? The onboarding
Yeah,
of new employees. So there's a lot of automation being built in on the other side. And here you're using automation or intelligence to help humans to deal with the automation on the other side. That's what you're essentially kind of
yeah.
setting up.
Leveling up the playing field. I think most solutions have been targeted towards enterprise because it's
Hmm.
easier, they have the money, etc. But I think it's important to serve both sides of the market.
Yeah, true, true. So, all right. Where do you see yourself in terms of barriers to do what you want to do right now? Meaning, what are the challenges you're faced with now in terms of executing on your vision?
Yeah, there's a few things. One of the big thing that we've been doing this program is deeply, deeply understand our users and how to best put the product at the right time in front of them, right?
Mm,
Because that's obviously some of the challenges. when you speak with a student audience, right? They have, and students, but every people, like they have a million things to do, right? And so if you don't nail the timing when Brio is presented to them, they're gonna be like, yeah, I don't care. Like September, for instance, like what you think about is probably partying and making new friends rather than, your internships or your next job is gonna be months from now. So you're not thinking about this.
You're not
But when
worried
you're
about it.
thinking about it, exactly. When you thinking about your job, like you're gonna be like, yeah, hell yeah, I need Brio right now. And so
Yeah.
that's one thing that we're trying to nail, which is I think very important. And then we are thinking more holistically into the jobs to be done ultimately is not to train you for job interviews, it's to get you the job, right? Like no one cares about doing a job prep. Like I don't care, you don't care, because you actually care about doing the job. It's like Duolingo, no one cares about learning a new language, they want to speak a new language. And so more holistically, how do we think about the product and the bricks we want to add to make sure that we get you from not getting a job to having a job? And interview prep is part of that journey, but there's other bricks that we need to build. So
I
those are
would
like
really,
products.
I would kind of argue that not everybody would be thinking in terms of, I don't care about what the job is, I just need to get a job. I
Well,
think
I mean,
people will be more focused on doing something in a particular industry that wherein they can leverage what they have in terms of a skill, right?
I meant I don't care about prepping for the job. I care
Ah,
about
okay.
getting the job. That's what I meant. Like Brio, if I could do without Brio and get the job, or I could do
Yeah,
without anything and get the job, that I would do this. I just
right.
we part of the process because you have to do it, right? But we
Hmm.
so that's why we have to think holistically.
Got it. So the other
Mhm.
question that comes to mind is, if your target user segment is students, that's
Mhm.
what is the user life cycle with your product? Meaning, somebody is studying in college and they get into the industry, they use Brio and they get land a job. After that,
Mhm.
do you see them coming back to Brio ever?
Yes. I think that's the bigger vision. So we started with higher ed institutions because they have a need that is recurring, right? They have
Yeah.
new students every year, and so they'll be using Brio and they continue to use Brio. But ultimately, the vision here is if we are a trusted advisor to those people that is useful and help them succeed, the timing at which people change jobs right now is much, much higher than before. And so we want to be able to help them throughout their life, right? So that's a way bigger vision and more longer term than what we're thinking right now. But that's the end goal is like people are switching jobs more and more. And moreover, I think there's a big proportions of people who want to change jobs but don't know what or how. And we want to address those because being in the wrong job affects you, your family, your income, everything. It's a mental load that is really, really high. And we want to provide the tools for people. I use this in college is kind of like the way in, right? I used it in college. It was awesome. I got my job and it maybe helped me like the first steps of my job as well, as a coach would do, right? And then 2 years after, I need to change jobs. I'm not very happy here anymore. Like, let's come back to it. So that's a big hypothesis. We have not tested it yet. This like longer term vision, sorry, but that's something that we aim to do. Yes. And college are like formative years, right? Those are the things where you think about things, you experiment with products that have going to be a big impact in your life.
True. So I'm thinking about your current focus or your current edge is going to remain the institutions that adopt your products because that's where you're going to get a recurring user flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usage of that. So, and so is your product then? So when it comes to the, sorry, I'm just kind of thinking through this while I'm talking about it here.
Yeah.
When it comes to the end user, and if you say you're looking at the long-term scope that they will always come back to Brio, that means you would have to manage their profiles, keep track of what they're doing in terms of their journey on the various jobs they do, the various skills they. It's like you have an integration with LinkedIn, for example, so you can keep track of their professional careers and you can give them recommendations of what kind of trainings they can take along the way to
Hmm.
upscale or to get the next promotion, things like that. That can be an
Yes.
interesting thing again.
It sure is. Yeah, yeah, definitely. That is something we want to
Hmm.
build out. We just want to address, first of all, what I was saying, do
No, I
something
get
really
that
well
completely.
first,
Yeah.
and then, build it to it. But yeah, the vision, the bigger vision is definitely that.
All right. So
Mhm.
when it comes to go to market and testing out the idea right now, um, are there any specific groups that you've put it out to now, and what have your learnings been from there?
Yeah, so there's a few key learnings. First of all, I think one key learning that was really cool as we've been talking to like our power users, right? The people who did more than like 6, 7 interviews on Brio. I was
Hmm.
talking like 2 days ago to someone who did 40 interviews on Brio over the
Okay.
last 2 months. So that was really crazy. Basically, most of the people they've come to Brio, they've seen Brio somewhere in their school, right? They've been advertised. They were like, okay, this sounds cool. I don't really know what I need to do, and then they went to a first interview and they bombed it, right? They failed and they felt really lost and like lack of confidence and stuff like that. And then they came to Brio after that failed first interview, and that's what brought them back the confidence to do interviews again and to get back out there and get the job. And so that was
Okay.
a really cool insight into the
Interesting. So
group of
they've
students who were.
used Brio to get that reassurance that they can do it, and then and why does that happen? Is it because Brio gives them recommendations on the screen that they where they need to improve and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's basically they're saying like I go to interviews, I have the face of the recruiter in front of me that sometimes is like or anything, but I don't get anything. Sometimes I'm taken, I don't know why. I'm rejected, I don't even know why. Sometimes I kind of know why, but I don't get something. Here, I have the questions. A lot of people are like, I I have an interview coming up. I have no clue what I need to do, right? Researching the company a bit, what questions I'm out prepping for. Here it's like very, very clear. You get the questions, you know if you answered right or wrong. There's no right or wrong, but right, is it impact what you're saying? What are you missing? And in the it's very actionable, right? You have this thing in your resume, you should probably talk about this, right? Like, okay, it feels better. I'm learning how to handle those conversations.
Yeah, feedback is
Right.
super important, right? Users can
Yeah.
kind of that's the only thing that helps you improve. So
Hmm.
and it's pretty powerful
Definitely.
if your system can give it.
And you were talking about like groups of users who've used Brio and that we've targeted. And
Hmm.
so there's been a lot of like business people, um, and now we're getting into more engineering school and stuff like that. But one of the things that we've been targeting and building for, as I said, is like specific kind of exercises for like technical interviews. For
Hmm.
instance, M&A with mergers and acquisitions, because we know those people are very hungry for exercising. If you get an M&A technical interview at a bank, Rothschild or JP Morgan, stuff like that, you're going to put the hours studying, looking at the content that you need to learn by heart, be really, really, really prepared. And so those people know they really need to prepare and be confident in their answers. So we built specific exercises for those types of industry, and people keep coming back to it
Oh,
because
okay.
what they've been doing so far is like taking a friend and say, can you ask me about those questions? Or like, they have a cheat sheet and they ask
Yeah,
themselves the question and they're like, okay, do I have it right? Do I have it? And so yeah, it's very old.
it's more
So right
cumbersome.
now,
Yeah, fair.
exactly.
Interesting. Okay. Any so when it comes to talking to users, are they how do you go about getting feedback really? Are they just I know power users will be forthcoming, but most users don't tell you
Hmm.
what they really want out of a product when they use it. So how do you
Hmm.
what kind of mechanisms are you using? I'm trying to get into uh, the tactical stuff that you do on a day to day so that people can understand that it's there's a lot of hard work that goes into building a business like this, right? It's not
Oh yeah.
easy, right? There's a lot of sleepless nights. So I'm trying to understand what is it that keeps you up at night nowadays?
Yeah. So I think a very big thing is that I'm out there. I'm going to the school. I'm doing webinars. I'm calling people up. I'm out in the field. I'm like there's like these fairs, and I'm here with my roll ups with like
Yeah,
Brio, and I'm like, hey, do you guys know Brio? You want to talk with me? And those are the people are just passing by, and we
yep,
put the logos into the TVs and stuff like that. And then I send emails to the people like, oh, I've seen you had a bug on Brio. Like, can I help you? Or like all of those things that you ultimately need because you need to be as close to your users as possible. So I think that's
yeah,
how I gather a lot of feedback because ultimately one of key differentiator is that I was where they are like 2 3 years ago. So my message resonates with them. I'm when I talk to them, I use their vocabulary. Right? I'm no bullshit. I know you have other things to do than prepare for job interviews. You have probably a lot of sports to do, friends to meet, party to go to. So what I'm telling you is that Brio is going to help you. No bullshit. You're going to save time by using this, and it's going to be
hmm,
awesome. And I know you're stressed. I know this is hard. I'm going to help you. And they know I really care about them. And so when you go in with that mentality and they see you and they see your face into the webinar that they're in, they see your face in their school, they see that you're sending emails with like a picture saying nice things and stuff like that, people tend to respond well to that. And then they're like,
okay,
this doesn't work, this works, those kind of things. But they tend to respond well. And also being there, you build relationships. So they're interested in my founder journey, the topic of today. They're like, oh, you
yeah,
started entrepreneurship pretty early. Like, I might be interested in that. How did you do that? How did you
yeah,
find your co-founders? How did you go and start thinking about your ideas? Why did you start? And so having all those conversations that build goodwill and that build relationships with the people on the ground. They're like,
yeah,
yeah, I've tried it, loved it, recommended it to all of my friends. And oh, this one friend didn't really like it. Like, let's talk with him. Okay, cool, let's go. And those relationships that you build are ultimately what allows you to be close to your users, I would
yeah.
say.
This is a big, it's a pretty important thing that you're doing because, and it's a lesson for everybody who's building product out there that, you need to think about your users as you're building a relationship with them. You need to really get to their level and understand their perspective. Have a conversation that is not about your product. And then you will realize the moment you start having a conversation about their journey is when you'll see a lot of aha moments that say, oh, you know what? This is what I really want to do. And then you say, okay. And then how do you apply that back to improving your product to really make it work for
Exactly.
them? Right. So yeah, awesome. You're on that.
Yeah.
You've
I
been in
have,
you're in the trenches and discovering
yeah,
that
I
firsthand. That's
have
pretty cool.
I love what you said because I think ultimately when I try to understand users, I'm people are like, oh, you want to talk about your product? Like, here's my feedback. This button didn't
Yeah.
work, and I'm like, okay, I'm taking all of that in, with my team. Of course, we're gonna fix whatever's fixing or think about the new product improvements that you do. But what I really want to do is understand you. Where are you coming from? What are you
Yeah.
trying to achieve? And how
Yeah.
can we help you the best we can? And sometimes you get crazy stories into like people who are like, I'm gonna take this example, but some guy, I was talking with one of the power users of Brio I talked with. He was like, yeah, I was really confident back in 2021. We had, oral examinations when I talked with people to get into the school. I was awesome. He's like, I'm really great. Then COVID hit. I got my first Zoom interviews. That was really scary for me. Like I love like seeing people and getting someone on the Zoom call. It confused me. I was not feeling it. So this was the first thing that kind of derailed me. After that, I got 2 years in studies without doing interviews, and then I got this one interview, which I thought I would nail, and I completely bombed it. And so my confidence level was like
Yeah.
down, like shattered, completely shattered. And that's someone that is, doesn't seem like it. Like this is this type of vulnerability that you're trying to solve. And he's like, that's why I'm doing so much interviews on Brio because this time I really don't want to fuck it up. That's what he said. I'm like, I
Yeah.
went into this junior position with junior people, I was like, I can probably do it, and then didn't get it. And then I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, his words like, I don't want to train with my friends because I feel they're gonna be too judgmental. I'm very uneasy around people for these specific things because job thinking is really tough. So it's like I'm practicing in front of my mirror, but I know the question I'm gonna ask myself. So this is and um, and this was crazy. So those are the types of things of insights that you're really looking at,
Yeah.
and that was pretty insightful. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy because there are a lot of people who think they speak well. And then, until they get that objective feedback from a third party, they don't realize what they're not doing right. Cues and stuff, because you're always more partial to what you see in the mirror.
Yeah.
You know what I
Definitely.
mean? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you definitely Brio becomes that objective feedback mechanism for you. So it's
Mhm.
yeah, pretty interesting.
It's also like a security net for some people. So I had these other users who's not a power users, but I built a relationship with one of his friends and talked with him, relating back to what we were saying, and he was like, "Yeah, I used Brio twice, but it was enough for me to get all the values in the word because I'm a very confident person. I know how to prepare for interviews. I've done lots of them. I'm I'm good. I don't need Brio." Like kind of mindset. And then he was like, I tried it once because a lot of my friends talked to me about it. I was like, okay, let's try this. And then on the first, like the second question he got, it was like, wait a minute, I don't know how to answer that. Uh, for a
Mm.
job that he really, really wanted. And so it's
Okay.
like I done 2 interviews on that, and that was enough for me to gauge the level of preparation I needed to do more on because I didn't fully read the job description. I had this thing, didn't really know how to do. And then he said like next day I got the exact same question on the interview, and I was like, thank God I prepared this. And then he
Yeah.
got the job, but that was a funny thing. Um,
Yeah.
the idea is to also provide value. If you don't do 40 interviews on Brio, that's okay. You can probably get some values out of like one or two.
Cool. So are you using these success stories of of people having found jobs from using Brio and all to woo more students in? Excuse me.
Yeah. So definitely we have like testimonials video. We need to put them on the websites. Right now we're collecting testimonials videos from both from the client side
Hmm.
of things, which are very interesting also sometimes, and from the student sides. So for instance, one of the client was saying like, we have a coaching service, but we get a lot of international students who are very shy and don't want to talk with us, right? They don't know how to speak French. They have an accent. They don't feel comfortable. And then Brio is kind of like, I'm talking to an NI. I don't care if I redo the interview like 30 times or if I
Yeah.
whatever. And then once they do like 2, 3 interviews on this, then they take a meeting with the career coach that they would have never done it otherwise because they're like,
Okay.
okay, I need to strategize now, and I see the value in like talking with someone now. So those are all the testimonials that we're gathering and putting into the website and also into like our sales motion, right? Because people, that's what they want to talk about, right? Because those tools, they're like, what's the ROI on that? Like it's tough to see exactly, are people gonna like it? So that's why we do testing, and what are the other schools thinking about? Because it's a very competitive market, so they're all like looking at each other, like, is that an edge? Is that an edge?
Mm.
It is, but we have to.
Yeah. So when it comes to marketing to students, as you said, right, they may not always listen to typical marketing stuff.
Mhm.
So have you thought about things like having a student do a test on this and then giving them a score that then they can share with friends, so it becomes like a competition amongst them to use. I got a score of so much in Brio has rated me so high, I'm in like the top 10% of or 5% of people for this job, and then
Mhm.
try out whether you qualify. It becomes like a contest between students, and in the process they start using more of Brio.
Yeah.
Things like that.
So this is really interesting because this is something that we've been thinking a lot. And this is I mean, I love this stuff. Like we're getting in the middle of things. So
Hmm.
basically we're like, okay, do we put a score to people? Do we say they get the interview or they get the job or not, right?
Yeah.
And so what we've been doing after careful consideration is we are not scoring users when they do a mock interview,
Okay.
because first of all, if I tell you like you get the job and then you go to the interview, you don't get the job, I don't have any power in that,
No, no,
right?
you should not say you will get the
So
job, but I'm saying it's just about a
yeah.
score of you're doing on a
Mhm.
scale of, you are in the top
Yeah.
90 percentile kind of a thing,
Yeah. So
you
what we
know?
did is do not give a score to mock interviews, because it's ultimately very tough to get. So we give informations and we want to be as supportive as possible.
Mm.
And we are talking to users, they have enough grades, right, in their lives already. They don't want way more. What we did was build a leaderboard with scores for specific exercises. I was talking about M&A before, mergers and acquisition, finance.
Hmm.
Those are the kind of people that are very, very competitive and are looking for grades, because in those careers you have a lot of grades. You're graded all the time, peer reviewed, etc. So
Hmm.
they want this, and they want the leaderboard because they're competitive. They know they need to work really. If you're in investment banking, like you're gonna work really, really hard. So you're into this, and so that's why we carefully design things to make sure that we did a leaderboard and score for certain types of exercises and certain types of people, not for all others. Because, for instance,
Mm.
if you do a leaderboard like that, and your first time users of Brio, you see the leaderboard and people who've done like 50 interviews, big score, and you're like, oh, I'm already lost in my career journey. I don't know what to do. And I see all those people doing so well. That might bring you down. And that's not what we want to do. We want to encourage you to do an interview and, progress one step at a time. So
Hmm.
that's, how we've been thinking about this. That is
Okay.
careful thinking, and some of the things that might change in the product in the future. But that's how we've been thinking about this so far.
Yeah, I
And the
mean, like,
virality for those people.
yeah, I'm coming from a go-to-market perspective because you need to have more
Yes.
users coming in to try out the product, especially when you're in the early
Mm-hmm.
stage. How do you get students to get, excited about something? So,
Yeah.
you have to have look at multiple ways of doing it.
I have other answers for that. So one of the things that we're building right now is also like the B2C part of the product right now, because we've been
Hmm.
focused so much on schools that we've been building a product. And right now, if you go to our website, you can't even like pay and use it as a individual users. What we're doing is that, and what we're going to be doing is like, if you sign up with an education address, like a student's email address, then you get interviews for free, some interviews for free. And if you share with your friends that have also edu email addresses, then you get more interviews for free. So right, all the people who want to try it and then share with your friends, and then we can go to the school and be like, we have like 10 students that are already paying for Brio and they love it.
Oh, okay.
Probably we could do something together. So for the go to market, that's how we think about this.
Oh, okay. Something like a referral program, really, right?
Exactly.
Mm.
And I mean, it's not figured out yet, but one other thing is that could we get the students to talk to their administration and say, oh, we really want Brio? And like get something built in, like send an email, automatic email, or send something referral to your school, because what they listen to ultimately are their students, right? Like that's what they
True.
care about.
So what I'm understanding from this is also that you are focusing on students as an entry point into new institutions.
Yes, for now. Because
Uh,
that's our go-to-market strategy. Yeah.
all right. So cool. Do you have a product to showcase yet, or is it coming soon? What's the scene?
Yeah. Yeah, I can do this if this is a good use of our time, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, the product is live, so I can show it to you if you want.
yeah. Why not? Let's
Cool.
let's quickly do a run through of the product too, so people get a sense of what we're talking about.
Yeah. So, let's put it in English, right?
Mhm.
For
Yeah.
our friends.
So while you're opening it, I also wanted to ask you how many languages does this product support right now?
Two for now.
Okay.
French and
And
English.
you have
Yeah.
something in the pipeline or more languages?
Yeah. So that's gonna depend on, our clients right now. So we are talking with schools in Italy, for instance. So we might add Italian soon and probably
Okay.
Spanish. Those are like the main languages we're looking at for right now. But yeah.
Because what do you think? What's your take on the challenges of people who come from different parts of the world and whose native language is not English, for example, and their struggles with not just technical but
Mhm.
also expressing themselves better because they don't have the language capability, right? So do you see that as a problem area that you can address, or is that something that doesn't align with the product right now?
So I think that's something that we can address and help them, because we're going to see in the feedback, but basically we give actionable. So like we have your resume, we could say things for you, like how you should probably, introduce yourself, or like give you ideas into how you can weave that into your speech. So that's very
Mm,
important. And I think that's also part of our, job as Brio, to be like, if you're an immigrant, you have an accent, I do myself. This is part of your background. This is part of your storytelling. This is something that you must be proud of. And coming to a new job, not having English as your native language, being like, I hustled to be here. I I'm talking to you in a language that I'm not native in. I'm gonna This is a show of strength, right? Like I'm learning. I learned a lot, and I'm willing to put myself out there. And so that's something that people, it's always a question of framing, right? People don't frame it that way most of the time. So they feel insecure about their own problems, their accent, maybe the errors that they're doing while they're speaking. Whereas if you look at it from another lens, of course you have to have like professional proficiency, right? Like we can't, like if you have a A1 level, you don't speak a word of the language, that's probably going to be tough to help you get a job. But once you get good enough, we can help you refine, manage those errors, and also like view yourself as someone who you know gain confidence in yourself, because you're going to repeat those answers and have an idea like how to answer them. Mhm.
all right, cool. Yeah,
Very
because
cool.
it becomes very important for people who struggle with a different language, because they may, as we started this conversation by saying that they know a lot of stuff, but they're not able to communicate. So it all comes down to the
Yes,
communication aspect of it. So even
exactly.
if Brio can help them structure basic levels, basic statements that they need, that will help them communicate well. I think that's a big, huge meaning. It's a huge advantage for them. It
Yeah.
becomes like a
Uh,
major thing for them to use the product.
yes, definitely,
Yeah.
and that's something we want to do more of.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
being able to detect better accents and being able to like showcase to people, what they've been really good at. I think that's part of the product, into like how we're thinking about things, how to be
Mm,
supportive yet challenging. It's always, the balance
yeah.
that
But
we
do
are
you
looking at.
do you ask users about their background like that in terms of ethnicity and stuff, language skills and all when you
No,
onboard them?
no, no, we don't.
Wouldn't that
Yeah,
make it easier?
they choose their language here.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't know,
saying
because
just
it
for
puts
profile building, right?
it puts you in a box. So I think that's not something that we've been looking at so far. Um, because you introduce yourself during the interview, so we have that data, right?
Hmm.
But I just, maybe something to think about more.
Yeah,
I
meaning
would be careful
contextualize
about
it with,
those.
let's say, if I say now I'm from India, there are a lot of people from India who may not be able to speak as well,
Hmm.
uh, let's say a foreign language. Let's say someone is trying to apply for a job in France, and then
Yes.
French becomes a problem. So then you're thinking in your head in your native language. So you're processing information in your head in your native language, and then you're translating it directly into whatever basic French you may have learned. So how do you ensure that that becomes correct? So what I'm trying to get at is, isn't it important to understand the core capabilities of the person so that you can contextualize the feedback offered by the product?
That's a very good point. Um, I would say for now, this hasn't been a challenge for our users that we've
Okay.
encountered so much. But that's definitely some of those things we can get from the interview, right? Like, and then contextualize the feedback based on that. But then getting that more into the core product is important as well. So that's something that we're gonna be thinking about, definitely. And then one of the things that I'm thinking while you're telling me about this is like how we can get people to train to be confident enough to train for the interviews in the language they don't know yet well enough, right? Because if you're speaking English and you're trying to do things in French, you're probably going to be like, oh, I'm going to train in English first. That's going to be easier and stuff like that. So how do we push you to train in French? Because that's what your interviews you're ultimately going to be about. So that's part of the.
Got it. Okay. All right. Let's dive into the product.
Yeah, sure. So this is not my real name. This is just a demo account. So here I am. I'm a student, right? Just logged in into Brio. I'm gonna do start interviewing, right?
Mhm.
I've accepted by default in this account my camera and microphone access, right? And then I have a few exercises I can choose from. As I was saying, we talked about M&A, but we also have like salary negotiation, presentation, stuff like that, and then bread and butter of Brio, which is mock interviews. And this page is what Brio all about. We want to be, as I was saying, as specific and as concrete as possible. And that's why in this page you're going to choose a job you want to train for. And what you're going to do is basically copy and paste a job description from wherever you want, right? So I'm just on LinkedIn right now. Let's say I want to do this thing, right? Growth and marketing intern. I just choose, random job description here. Um, it's a high growth crypto and AI startup. That's a lot of keywords, but let's go. So this is basically I'm copy and paste it,
Mhm.
just to have something to go through today. I'm not a growth and marketing person, but that's so name of the company is Spawn. So I have the job exactly that I want to train for. I input my resume as well. So this is optional, obviously, but a recruiter has your resume with them when they do this. And this is waiting room just before I enter the Google Meet or the Teams. Like, when
Okay.
you're kind of stressed and like, oh, how's the interview
Yeah.
gonna go? Um, and so what I'm going to do is, start the interview, do a few questions, answer a few questions to show you how it works, and then um, go into that.
Okay.
Pause just for. So I hope you're going to be able to hear the sound, but yeah.
Hello, I am Michael, the Growth and Marketing Manager at Pond. Today, we'll be exploring your fit for our business and growth intern role by discussing your background, skills, motivations, and situational responses. Could you please introduce yourself and provide key highlights of your background?
Hey, Michael, my name's Alex. I'm really, really happy to be there today. And, I really want this job. Don't judge me on my interview skills, please.
Could you share more about your background, such as your education, previous internships, or any relevant experiences?
Oops. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get into this. So, I'm from France, from the west of France. I did my education at HC, which is a very big business school in France, and I also have a degree from the Yale School of Management. And I have experiences mainly in project management, both in big companies as well as startups. So that you get the flow and the
Thanks for
rhythm how it
sharing,
works.
Alex. HC and Yale School of Management are both impressive institutions. Can you tell me more about your project management experience, specifically in startups?
So this in oh, sorry. This is I'm just going to pause here for a moment just that we can talk about it a bit
Mhm.
more. So you've seen
Mhm.
how it works. Basically, the idea is that it's both personalized. So now it focuses on startup, obviously because Pawn is a startup, so it wants to know more about this, and also reactive to what I'm saying, right? Like project management. Also, I've introduced myself very poorly. Obviously, this was by design just to show you.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a way better interviewer than that. No, I'm kidding. But just by design to make sure that um, it's reactive. We want to have something that feels like a conversation or like a real interview rather than just a list of questions that we're going through. And I think that's what makes all the difference as well. And so I'm gonna just do one more questions and then get the feedback. Even if the interview
Okay.
is gonna be really short,
Yeah.
we'll get an idea of how the feedback looks like, right? So yeah, I mean, I have worked at a fintech startup in Barcelona where I was the operations manager, and I was planning everything with all the different teams. So marketing team, technical team, risk team, growth team, and everything to make sure that operations were going well. We would acquire as many users as possible, convert them, retain them, and everything.
It sounds like you had a dynamic and multifaceted role at the fintech startup. Can you describe a specific initiative or project you led that had a significant impact on user acquisition?
All right, let's just finish this. But
Yeah.
you see that it's interactive and then getting into more meats, right? As a real interviewer would say. So then we have the feedback that looks like that, as I was saying, our philosophy is really, as with the interview, to get really specific into, your experiences, what you could say better, what you did exactly. So here, my interview was really, really short. So, we don't have much to go on about, but you have basically a summary. So I have good energy. Thank you. We're gonna find two good things to say. We are very, enthusiastic about what you did. Like, let's go. And then two things that you should probably do more. So I say, and everything. That was not very professional. So I'm saying a lot now. I realize, but we are very concrete on what you did, because people, like, if I give you general advice like you should smile more, avoid filler sentences, filler words, you're going to be like, yeah, thank you, Alex, I know that's not that useful.
Yeah. It's not
But then you did
specific.
it, you
Yeah.
did the interview, you did those mistakes, so you're like, oh damn, I'm that person, right?
Mm.
And then you get the deep dive into everything that you've done well or that you could add. So add specific metrics when you describe your product management experience at fintech startup. So that's really me, right? That's what I've done. And that's at times your tone was quite informal. So make sure that to address that. And then we get a non-verbal feedback on, I was saying, the eye contact, the smile, the lightning, everything. And then we have like kind of the presentation, which everything that was, could benefit from some help, some positive aspects. As I was saying, we have your resume and the job description, so we can craft a presentation for yourself, saying you shouldn't learn this by heart, but you should be conscious of what a good presentation might look like. And then there's a few things more into the audio analysis, of course, the filler words that I've used, so a lot. And also the specific vocabulary that you could use to convey your enthusiasm and knowledge of this industry. So Pond is a crypto and AI startup. So you could probably show that you know this kind of space, right? And so that gives you just any ideas into what you could say. And so the feedback is pretty detailed, and then you can find it here in your own page. And then obviously for the other exercises that I mentioned, salary negotiation, it's going to start being like, oh, Alex, we're very happy to welcome you to our company. What are your salary expectations? And then you go on from there, do the whole thing, and the feedback is tailored to that salary negotiation, saying, in the salary negotiation, you should be creative, right? And find other ways, not only salaries, be blocked on
Yeah.
your salary expectations. So those are the kind of feedback that we provide.
So I have a question here. So if I'm doing 5 sessions of the same interview as a practice, right? Are you
Mm-hmm.
keeping track of my, each session and then comparing it with the previous session and giving me markers as to what I'm still doing wrong or what I have met, meaning my improvement over time?
Mm-hmm. So we are building this right now. So far, you could see what's different. So different interviews are going to have different questions. We made it so that, you have a wider span of like what type of questions
Can
will
be
be asked
asked.
of you. Yeah.
Right.
And so you can do 5 interviews and still got a lot of value from this. This is not going to be like the exact same thing, right?
Right.
And then we're building this sense of progression right now. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, I don't know if this has come up as a need from anyone that has already done it, any of your power users, wherein they say that no, we need to see, are we improving? What is the feedback that after I started day 1 of Brio and day 15 of Brio, I've improved my skills over time, even though I'm just practicing on one type of a job requirement, but
Yeah.
still that.
Yeah, this is something that we are building right now. What they've told us is like basically they read all the feedback. So they see, oh, you were not metric specific. Oh, you're still not metric specific. Oh, okay, now this feedback doesn't come and it's like in the positive side. Oh, you were very specific with your metrics and the impact that you got. But now another thing that you're not doing well enough is you're not concise enough, right? Because you're expanding on metrics, you speak for hours. So like maybe make sure so they evolve like that, right? But
Got it.
that's something that we need to build into the tool more, definitely.
Cool.
Part of the product journey. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. There'll be a lot of feedback you get along the way that'll take you, that'll fill up your product feature board. But of course,
Yeah.
as you know already, that it's the biggest challenge again for founders is to really figure out which one to prioritize, right? From a feature ask
Yes.
point.
We
And that becomes
we
a big
talked about
challenge.
this. Yeah. Yeah. Our feature request is we have enough. We have enough. Now we need to
Yeah,
prioritize. Yes.
I can imagine.
Definitely.
Cool. Yeah, so I think any other thing you wanted to show on the product, or are we good? Is that it?
I,
What's
I No, I think we could spend a lot of times on the product, going through a salary
okay?
negotiation, M&A, everything, but I think you got the gist.
Yeah.
And what's cool if we could do an interview 2 months from now, and it would be very different.
Oh,
So I think
absolutely.
that's going to be
No,
very
definitely.
fast,
We
but
definitely want to
yeah,
showcase your journey on an
uh,
ongoing basis. So yeah, more than welcome to come back and say, hey, now we got new stuff.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, we're
Yeah.
definitely going to have new stuff. But yeah,
Okay.
no, I think you get the gist of the product, how it
Yeah.
works, how it looks, the feel of it. So I
Yeah.
think that's the most important part.
All
Mhm.
right. So now towards the final aspect of this, what are the current asks that you have? Meaning from the audience, if you need something specific, could be collaborators, could be talent, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. So I think my main ask are going to be two-pronged. First thing is, if you're an institution or know an institution that could benefit from Brio, definitely, reach out or put us in contact. We're always looking to get more clients, so that would be the first thing. Awesome. The second thing is, as I was saying, when we talking about go-to-market strategies, we are trying to get into law schools and with law students and build the product specifically for them. And so if you happen to be a law professor, student, or know some people, please put us in touch. As I said, we're very underground, so we want to talk with as many users as possible, get them into we don't want to release features that are not going to be used. So we're going to be testing them out in the field a lot and trying out our hypothesis. So that is very specific, but specific ask always gets better, answers. So those are the two things. And then obviously, if you're looking for a job and we can help you, that would be with great pleasure. That is our mission. And so please reach out. We'd love to talk, understand your pain points, and then, of course, give you access to Brio and help you.
And how can they reach you via email or anything you want to
Yeah,
drop?
I can drop both my email. Is there a chat or how I could?
Yeah, once we publish the recording, we will kind of list out ways they can, the audience can reach out to you. We'll over time
Mhm.
also we are hosting a profile, so this conversation is going to
Okay,
come up on founder journeys, wherein people can actually say, okay, I want to talk, and because
right.
each of your asks are going to be broken down into specific
Okay,
asks, and then people who relate to a particular ask will be able to reach out to you for that ask. So that's how we are
amazing,
structuring it. So it'll be, yeah, it's
amazing.
early days. I'm also building at the same
Cool.
time.
Yeah, that's what's fun. That's what's fun. So I put
Yeah.
my email, phone number, and my LinkedIn. I'm quite
Hmm.
active on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you could call out your the website.
Yes, definitely. So it's Brio, Brio .ink, INK, ENK. Yeah. So I'm
All right,
gonna write it
cool.
down as well. But yeah, maybe you've seen. I don't know if on the screen share people can see it, but yeah.
Anything you that comes to mind that you need to put out there, you can talk about it.
Yeah, maybe something that's going to be really interesting. I was talking about, specific features and exercise that we're designing,
Hmm.
and a very exciting feature that we have coming up is consulting cases.
Okay.
So for all the people who are in consulting, they're going to know a bit. But basically, when you're interviewing for consulting, it's very competitive, first of all, obviously. And then you have a very specific job interview process when they ask you this case, where it's basically you have a client that is seeing sales decline. What are you going to do? And so it's like a 30, 45 minutes talk with your interviewer. When you're asking them questions, you have to think through it. You have to make math in your heads and come up with answers in a very ideation type of things, but it's a very formatted type of things, which are very, very hard to train for. And we're going to have that on Brio very soon. And so
Okay.
I'm really, really, really excited about this because basically people have been um, training for that with people. There are groups where they find people, they need to help them train. They don't really know how to do it. It's very stressful. And so if we get down real right, it's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be very helpful to a lot of people. And so, if you're interested about that, we're going to be looking for beta testers of this particular feature as well. So I think that is going to be fire.
All right. So this is for business
Mm-hmm.
consulting, right?
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all you business consultants out there, you can reach out to Alex and then he's gonna get you
Yeah.
on board. The other question is about the team. How big is your team right now, and what's your vision? How fast is it growing, and all that stuff.
So we are four co-founders. I mentioned my mentor and the contractors we had back then. Those contractors who are like technical people, one in AI and the other were software developer, got into the team because they are saying we work really well together. We really love the product. We really love the project, the vision. Is this possible we get into the team? And so we're like, yeah, obviously, that's what we want to build. So far we have four founders, and we have five in the team, and I think we're gonna grow. So we're finishing Techstars in like a month now. It's coming pretty fast, and we're probably gonna be eight at the end of the year. I think something like that, and then that's a wild prediction because end of the year is very far from now. Startup life wise.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think if you're talking about team wide, I think nowadays um, we have to keep the team small because we want to hire the right type of people, and that takes time. We don't want to grow too fast. I'm feeling weird saying that because we want to be really fast, but I've seen firsthand, what millions of dollars can do to a company if you don't do it right. Like I was a company that was hiring 10 people a week, and you can't keep up with the culture and the bar. The bar that you set can't be that high if you're hiring that many person. I mean, not never, but it's really tough to do. So we want to keep the bar as high as possible and really recruit the people who we think elevate the level. So in terms of vision for the team, we really want to bring strategic people inside that are going to really bring a lot of value. And I think we can do a lot with small teams nowadays. Not to say that we want to be small, but just we want to bring in the right type of people. That's
Okay.
a very important type of things that we are building right now. Yes.
And what is your biggest fear as a founder?
My biggest fear. I mean I care about this problem a lot, and my co-founders do too. And so if people use Brio and say like this is not useful, that's kind of my biggest fear, right? That to make money but don't have an impact on people because you can make a lot of money. I think selling to people not having a real value because your marketing is amazing or whatever. Well, I want to make sure that the product we're building, everything that we're doing is to serve our users' rights and make sure to never be disconnected from that reality. That's, we've talked about this quite a lot, but that's really important.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and wishing you all the best, and hope we meet again soon with updates from your product and your journey.
Yeah, I would love that. Great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.